Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Talking Bookshelves. Today we are going to explore the two powerful forces, fancy and imagination, the differences between them along with their examples. Now these concepts are often misunderstood and it can be tricky for many students. But don't worry. We will break it down, and by the end of this lesson, you will be able to confidently explain both the terms and differences between them, along with detailed notes and references which you can refer to anytime you need. All right? Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Now, until the early 19th century, the terms imagination and fancy were used almost synonymously. The distinction between them became particularly clear during the Romantic period, especially through the writings of Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, in his book Biographia Literaria, which was published in 1817, Coleridge argued that fancy and imagination were two distinct mental processes, producing two distinct types of poetry. All right. Now let's discuss briefly what he actually meant by this. According to Coleridge, imagination is a higher, more creative faculty than fancy. Okay? He associates fancy with light verse, whereas, according to him, all the serious poetry comes from the imagination. So it is clear that Coleridge viewed fancy as a lower mental process. This distinction became a key concept in Romantic literary theory, and imagination was starting to be considered as a profound, almost divine, creative power, while on the other hand, fancy was seen as inferior, like a mere trivial invention. All right. So this much background clear to you. So now we can proceed with both the concepts in detail. Okay, so let's start with fancy. So the first point is fancy tends to be more superficial. So as I already told you that Coleridge considered fancy as superficial, as lower mental faculty. But why? Because as we know that Coleridge viewed fancy as a lower mental process because fancy tends to be more superficial, like a superficial attraction to something driven by aesthetics, like, for example, being drawn to some shiny object without considering its deeper value. That is why Coleridge considered it as a superficial mental faculty. All right. Like, that's why it's short term, because its surface level attraction might fade away quickly. All right. According to Coleridge, fancy combines existing concepts, images, or ideas without creating new ones. So it combines ideas, no doubt, but it doesn't create anything new. It discovers, but it doesn't invent anything. All right. He says, now he who? Coleridge. He says, fancy is more passive and mechanical than deeper. All right. It doesn't have the transformative power of imagination. Now, what is the transformative power of imagination? This we will discuss when we will study in detail the concept imagination. But right now, you need to understand that it doesn't transform like imagination. Okay, so Coleridge says fancy is a mode of memory emancipated from time and space. Now, what does it mean? Emancipated means totally free. So it means that fancy is a mode of memory totally free from time and space. Now also what does it mean? It means that it juxtaposes unrelated elements, ignoring physical distances, and combines different memories regardless of when they occurred, regardless of time and space. For example, dreaming about a childhood memory, but the scenario, the setting in your dream is of future. So what fancy did, it juxtaposed your past with your future because it is emancipated, it is free from time and space. Alright, now fancy's creative potential lies in its ability to break free from the shackles of time and space. Now, when I say creative potential, it means that fancy also has creative potential to create art, to create poetry. Although it was deemed inferior than imagination, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't produce any creative poetry. Its poetry is different, but it does produce creative poetry. So its potential also lies that it is free from the shackles of time and space, unlike imagination. It doesn't worry about order or timing. It mixes old and new, near and far like a dream. The example which I gave you about their dream. So in that dream, what happened? It juxtaposed old and new, near and far like a dream. It blended past, present, and future. All right. Now, in a way, fancy creates new, unique combinations without boundaries. It is not creating anything new. The point to be noted here is it is not creating anything new. Okay, but it is creating new combinations. Now, where did these combinations come from? These combinations already exist. All right, so it juxtaposed these combinations and it created new combinations. So this much clear to you? Okay, let's proceed to imagination. Okay, so we already know, like Coleridge said in the beginning, that imagination is a superior mental force compared to fancy. Now, in his words, imagination is, now this definition is given here, it is very, very important. It seems difficult, when you read it for the first time, but we will break it slowly, step by step, and then you will understand what he actually wants to say here. So this definition is very important. Memorize it. Okay. So in his words, imagination is the power which dissolves, diffuses, dissipates. Okay. In order to recreate, or where this process is rendered impossible, yet still at all events it struggles to idealize and to unify. Now worry not, we are going to break it down step by step and understand this concept. Alright? Okay. Now Coleridge says it dissolves, diffuses and dissipates. It means that it has transformative nature or transformative power. Dissolves means it deconstructs our familiar concepts. It disintegrates rigid patterns. Any concept we think can't be changed. Imagination can change it. There is no fixed truths or relationship in imagination. we can imagine something entirely new or opposite to our beliefs. Understood? Now, diffuses mean it distributes ideas, images, or emotions. It merges disparate parts into a new whole. Alright? Dissipates mean it clears away obstacles, clarifies, and refines. It reveals the underlying truths by removing unnecessary elements. So simply, dissolves means breaking down all structures, diffuses means spreading and merging elements, and dissipates mean clarifying and refining the new form. For example, in the end, in a chemical process, in the end, after all the reactions are done, we form a crystal when impurities are removed. Okay, so same happens with imagination. Okay, it goes through these three processes: it dissolves, it diffuses, and it dissipates. Okay, same thing happens with imagination here. That's why Coleridge calls imagination as the unified power, because it creates harmony by uniting. Okay, what it does, it unite? It unites reason with emotion, past with present and future, self with external world. So it combines everything. All right. Okay. But Coleridge also distinguishes further among the three forms of imagination. All right. What are the three forms of imagination? First is primary imagination, second is secondary imagination, and third is asemplastic imagination. Okay, let's discuss in detail. Okay, primary imagination. Let's take the primary imagination first. Now, primary imagination is the basic human ability to understand reality and perceive the things. And secondary imagination is creative, like poetry or art. It has artistic expressions. Now, the third and the last one is asemplastic imagination. Okay, according to Coleridge, the highest form of imagination is asemplastic imagination. It unifies opposites and is deemed as the highest form of mental faculty. All right. Okay, let's understand further. For example, suppose there is a tree in front of you. What will primary imagination do? It will make you able to understand reality and perceive the tree as tree. You will recognize that yes, there is a tree in front of me. You will see the branches and all right. Now what will the secondary imagination do? In secondary imagination, you paint the tree through your mind's eye, or you can paint it physically on a canvas with colors and patterns. You will notice its patterns. All right, you will know how the flowers look like, how are the patterns, which colors you want to use, which pattern you want to use, and everything. So secondary imagination gave it an artistic expression. It gave artistic expression to the tree. Now, in asemplastic imagination, what you do, you capture the tree's essence, like what emotions the tree evoke in you. Like you can say that tree is the symbol of life, growth, shade, serenity, our connection to nature, and all. Different individuals may have different emotions looking at a tree. For example, for a kid, it can be an example of a friend, a companion. Some can be reminded of their childhood. So the tree becomes a symbol of childhood. All right. So this is what the asemplastic imagination do. So we see in this highest level of imagination, we capture the tree's essence and its soul. The painting, which will be ready like this on your canvas, will not be ordinary. It will evoke feelings and tell everyone else a story. Similarly, poetry written using this kind of imagination will be the highest form of poetry. Now you understand why Coleridge deemed it as the highest mental faculty, because the exemplastic imagination actually captures the essence of the thing which you are going to put into an artistic expression. All right. So I think the conclusion is pretty much done. But to specify the things, I want to give little more example to it. Okay, so simply put, fancy is like decorating a room with all the things already present in the room. All right. Whereas imagination is about creating a whole new world. Fancy is about combining things which are already there, which already exist. But imagination is creating something entirely new. All right. So I would be glad if this lesson was in any way useful to you. See you next week with another enlightening and fascinating topic. Till then, stay tuned for never ending bookish adventures. Take care.